Everybody. My name is Miksic. I'm the Early Childhood Education Policy Director at Public Citizens for Children and Youth, or PCCY, as you all know us. We're so glad you're able to join us today. PCCY is a principal partner in the Start Strong PA campaign, who's our co-host today. The Start Strong PA campaign launched in January 2019 with the mission to support healthy child development, working families, and the economy by advocating for increased access to and affordability of high-quality childcare. The purpose of our event today is to hear from childcare programs and the families you serve. We believe it is critical to get input from you to better understand how to spend the $1.2 billion coming to Pennsylvania from the American Rescue Plan. We also want to ensure that while these are being labeled rescue dollars, that we understand that our industry needs more than just one-time support. We need ongoing permanent increases in funding to support our childcare sector. So with that said, I'm going to hand it off to Dan O'Brien, my colleague, and he's going to lead us in the discussion today.
Thank you, Mai, and thank you, everybody, for, am I getting a little bit of background? Okay, can you hear me better now? Perfect. Thank you, everybody, for joining today, whether you are from the early childhood education field. We have a lot of owners on here today and also educators, whether you are from a legislative staff. I can see, thank you to Representative Schroeder, who is on. I can see a representative from Representative Todd Polinchuk's office and also Representative Galloway's office. And I see Regina from Representative Perry Warren's office. If I miss you for any reason, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. We're going to be using the chat a lot today. We do have a great lineup of speakers who are from the early childhood sector within Bucks County. We're going to get a little bit of feedback, but we are encouraging others who are in the field and or a family or anybody really to kind of give your input along the way. So the way that it's going to work is we're going to have, in a second, we're going to have Danielle Bodnar from the Upper Bucks Chamber speaking about the importance of childcare to the local economy and hearing from local business owners. Danielle has a great perspective on that. And then get into two different panels to focus on how the providers that are within this field in Bucks County feel as if all of this federal money can be used by the state of Pennsylvania. So the idea, as Mai put it, was to really give you a voice in this matter, because that's really who we should be hearing for. What is happening on the ground, the biggest challenges that are facing you, and that's kind of the idea behind this. So I want to thank everybody who has joined us today. We're going to be about an hour. And again, feel free to utilize the chat along the way. So as I mentioned, to kind of get us started, I wanted to introduce Danielle Bodnar, who is the Executive Director from the Upper Bucks Chamber of Commerce. Danielle, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Dan. As Dan said, Executive Director at Upper Bucks Chamber. We are a business resource organization here in the Upper Bucks region that serves Palisades, Penridge, and the Quakertown school districts. We represent about 400 members that vary from large businesses like hospitals or financial institutions to mid-sized family-owned manufacturing, restaurants, retail spaces, to even our sole proprietors. So we do have a vast array of members that we're representing, all with different needs when it comes to their workforce. So really, Upper Bucks Chamber is committed to having these conversations with organizations like PCCY and all of you on the call, because we want to support our employers, which supports their employees. We want to make sure that we're finding childcare solutions for our working parents. We're very interested in seeing these funds go to support families who are returning to work and need quality child care. So everyone has been hearing socially or through the grapevine that businesses are having a hard time finding qualified and ready and willing employees. And it would be unfortunate to see childcare be one of those barriers for those employers and the employees. Even talking to Dan and saying that we wanted to participate as the chamber, because although we can't advocate on every level and solve all the issues, we still want to be a part of the conversation and make sure that we're representing our employees our members and those employers and the tough decisions they have to make. So in talking to some of our employers, we do have the Upper Bucks YMCA as a member, and we know that they don't turn anyone away based on inability to pay, and that they serve thousands of children for childcare and summer camps. But they are seeing an increase of 23% of more children that they're serving that require some type of financial assistance. 23% increase is obviously alarming, and we know that the need is out there. So as workforce is a main pillar of the Upper Bucks Chamber mission, we're determined to work with PCCY to survey our members and understand the current landscape for childcare needs, which we know is always evolving for our employers on what those needs are. And again, we want to make sure that if we have people returning into the workforce, that childcare isn't a barrier for them. So we're excited to be a part of this conversation. I even told Dan, I said, I have to leave at 2 to pick up my daughter from school. So all these working parents, working moms, grandparents, aunts and uncles, everyone has these support systems. And some do and some don't. And that's what we're really concerned about. The people that may not have.
Yeah, you mean, oops, sorry.
A parent can leave or have a grandparent who can help out. So these child care facilities are vital to parents being able to work. So thank you for allowing us to be a part of this conversation, and look forward to hearing all the great responses.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Thank you for not only representing your chamber, but kind of the business community around the county. I mean, what we have really seen even before COVID and has only kind of multiplied is the reliance on the workforce and the business community onto this childcare sector. Not to mention the fact that these childcare centers are small businesses, right? Every woman and man that's on this call today not only is passionate about early childhood education, but they also have the business side of it that they have to focus on. So we appreciate you coming here today and supporting everybody on this call. Thank you. So we're going to kind of move into the panel discussion portion of today's forum. And before I do, I also want to thank, I can see representatives from Senator Sanasera's office, and then also from Representative Tina Davis's office has joined. If you weren't here at the top of the call, the way we're going to do it is we're going to have 2 different panel discussions. Even if you're not on the quote unquote panel, we would love to get your input, especially if you work or own a child care center within Bucks County, in the chat. And my colleague Shirlee, in a second, once we get started, is going to kind of place the question that we're going to be discussing in the chat so that you can kind of follow along there. And I also see a representative from Ochdale on the call, Karen Grimm-Thomas, so we want to thank her as well. And the idea behind this is everything we talk about today and those other 11 forums that Mai mentioned from around the state, and or if something is put in the chat to give additional feedback, we're going to provide a report and a summary of the Start Strong campaign along with PCCY and some of our partners across the state. Basically what you said. The idea is this is your time to use your voice for what you need most now. So that is meant to inform the administration, and they have been gracious enough to be supportive of this idea so we can have that conversation. And then also to the state lawmakers, not only around Bucks County, but across Pennsylvania as a whole. So just to give you a quick idea of that. We did have a parent who was going to join us today. And as Danielle just kind of mentioned, you have these needs, you have these childcare issues that pop up, which is always a part of our conversation, and the irony never kind of gets past us. So unfortunately, that parent is not able to join us anymore due to a last second issue. But this morning she was able to, and really nice enough to take the time to kind of to send us a letter to almost give the feedback that she wanted to provide as a parent in Bucks County who relies on childcare. And so we wanted to give her the respect that she deserves and take that time to kind of read what she wrote regarding, how her family really truly relies on a specific child care center within Bucks County, and one that has been here since the mid-1980s and is terrifically led by Nancy Thompson, and that's Jolly Toddlers. So Shirlee, would you mind going ahead and getting started and kind of reading what that gracious mom wrote to us?
Great, sure. Thanks so much. She was nice enough to submit her family's personal story. And I apologize in advance because Jolly Toddlers is kind of a tongue twister and it's in here a lot. But the first time, I'll start with her story. The first time my husband and I stepped foot into Jolly Toddlers was June of 2017. We were anxiously awaiting the arrival of our firstborn in July and preparing for my return to work as a preschool special education teacher in January of 2018. We were in awe of every inch of the building and playground and instantly loved all of the amazing staff. We toured others, but went home and crunched the numbers. Jolly Toddlers, of course, was number one on our list. How were we going to swing it? Even with both of us working full-time with well-paying jobs, we were so unsure that the numbers kept us away from this beautiful place and staff that are more like a family. Putting my true feelings aside, I entrusted my son into the care of an in-home babysitter when I returned to work after the holidays that year. That experience was short-lived, so we went on to another in-home sitter and then yet another. 3 in-home babysitters in a matter of 14 months. I'll never forget the mornings filled with tears on his part as I dropped him off and tears on my part on the way to work. I'd call my husband crying, telling him we couldn't continue to send him somewhere he hated, knowing wholeheartedly that I hated it too. My husband would remind me only a few more months, weeks, days, as we awaited the arrival of our second son and my long anticipated maternity leave, when I'd finally get to keep my first baby home with me again. As I was home with both our boys during my maternity leave, my husband and I sat down at our dining room table once again, and we decided this was it. Our boys would be going to Jolly Toddlers at the end of my maternity leave in August. But could we afford it? Probably, maybe. We weren't 100% sure at the time, but with our previous experiences of in-home sitters and my experience as an educator in many childcare preschool settings, I knew in my heart that Jolly Toddlers was where my children needed to be. I, as their mother, needed the peace of mind knowing my children were going to be loved and cared for every single day, that they'd learn and make friends. I needed to know that they wouldn't cry every single morning for months on end and that they wouldn't be stuck inside in front of a television all day. Our children deserve better than that, and we knew we'd do anything in our power to make this work. One day we will look back and remember the times when money was tight, and our kids will remind us of the amazing early childhood education they received and the experiences and teachers that they will remember for a lifetime. Sometimes I'm embarrassed to admit how much of a struggle it is for my husband and I to afford childcare. We saved our income tax as well as my husband's annual bonus every year to help with these childcare payments on tight weeks. We put vacations on hold. We put conceiving our third child on hold until we knew the timing would work out that our oldest would be moving on to kindergarten and we wouldn't be paying tuition for 3 children to attend Jolly Toddlers. We questioned it so often in the beginning of our childcare journey. Why was it so hard at times to afford childcare for our boys? We reviewed the numbers over and over, only to come to realize that including childcare, our student loans, and our actual mortgage, we were actually paying 3 mortgages per month. Sometimes I feel like we're being punished. Money is tight because we choose to better ourselves, to get educations, and to pursue our dreams. Money is tight because we chose to move to Bucks County rather than live in Philadelphia, where we were both born and raised. Money is tight because we choose phenomenal childcare for our children. We shouldn't be punished for any of those things, but especially for expecting to be able to afford childcare for our children. The sad part is, I know we're not alone in this battle. Jolly Toddlers isn't the most expensive early childcare center in our area, nor is it the cheapest, but the cost is what it is. Jolly Toddlers is the establishment that it is due to the amazing loyal owner, Nancy Thompson, as well as the state funding that has been granted to Jolly Toddlers in previous years. If there is anything that the pandemic has taught us, it is that business owners that truly love their establishments can't survive without loyal patrons and the financial support from local state officials. Thanks so much for allowing her voice to be heard today.
Thank you, Shirley. Thank you for reading that. It's not easy to read, I'm sure. Sometimes I feel like we're being punished. You know, a hardworking family should not feel like they are getting punished just because they want to send their kid to an early childhood education center so that they can further, you know, pursue their career and try to put food on the table. That's not how this Pennsylvania should be run. So that gets to the next question, and she's not alone. Plenty of people that we all know, plenty of parents that you have all served have been feeling the same thing, which has only been exacerbated over the past year. And we can't tolerate that quote unquote feeling of punishment anymore. So the American Rescue Plan money is a start. It is a good amount of money that's coming to childcare, about $1.18 billion. And the first question we're going to kind of talk about today is, how should the American Rescue Plan funds be used to increase the share of children in high quality programs and support families who need childcare to return to work? And we have three great members of our ACE community here in Bucks County that are going to kind of address the topic today. And to lead us off, we have Valerie Hamilton, who is the founder and executive director in my hometown in Bristol Borough from Children of God. Valerie?
I just unmuted myself. My name is Valerie Hamilton. Thank you so much, Dan, for introducing. I have about 2 to 4 minutes, correct?
I'll never put a time limit on you, Valerie. No, yeah.
At my program, it's located in historic Bristol Borough. We serve a plethora of children, children with special needs, children who are gifted, and traditional children. We provide before care, after care, as well as preschool. And our focus right now is on our preschoolers. We did stay open the entire pandemic. From March 18th on, we received a waiver from Ochdale to serve our essential personnel. The very people Shirlee was just describing, who have to go to work, who need to provide for their family, to put food on the table, to pay their mortgages, so that they can have a great quality of life for not only themselves, but for their family. And we were there to supply that need. At an extreme cost. I had 2 businesses and one had to close as a result. However, we have money on the table that can help right now. And there are a few things, one in particular that rises to the top. And for the children that I've been servicing, whether they were virtual learners or my preschoolers, it dealt with their social and emotional health. And that issue could be resolved with more counselors, more services to help us in the classroom environment. I'm sure I'm not alone with other childcare providers who are seeing behavior upticks where children are not like themselves. They're going through a lot. They've been through a lot with the pandemic. They've been through a lot at home. Their parents have gone through a lot. And now we need to service them and kind of give them the help they need to survive this next academic year, socially, emotionally. So for us, it's counseling. In my program alone, we've seen loss of like a primary caregiver due to COVID. We've seen everything from transient populations, people who had to move around a lot, abuse, things like that. And we've also seen parents who just come together in love. And we just need help to be able to serve our parents and our children, get them the counseling that they need. And the money, it's there to help, and we could definitely use it. Another aspect is professional development. I'm a Star 3 center in the process of becoming a Star 4 center, and one of the requirements is that we provide a well-rounded environment for our children, that our teachers are highly educated. Most of my teachers have their bachelor's degrees, if not their master's. And right now, Walmart is at the process of paying $16.50 an hour. And that's very difficult for most child care centers to be able to pay their employees who are highly educated and are providing the best care possible to children. And professional development is one avenue to get that high quality. I require my teachers to do 27 hours. And if it's something to think about, it's a cost of about $800 to $1,000 per team member, per teacher to do this. And any help that someone could please give us so that we can provide that, that professional development that we need at no cost or a lower cost. And there are awesome programs like Better Care and things like that that are available for teachers, but still at that, The lowest we're looking at is between $500 and $1,000 per teacher. So yes, professional development help would be amazing. And then the last thing, Dan, and I'm sorry, I'm going to throw this in. I know I'm not the only center that was open. There are other centers that are online right now that stayed open during the pandemic, which is awesome. It was supposed to be only for 2 weeks and it lasted almost a year. If any help could be established for those of us who stayed open, that would be awesome as well. Just to think about us, the ones that stayed open, received a waiver to help these essential workers to make sure that they could get to their jobs, the nurses, the cashiers, and do what they needed to do to help us get through it. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Valerie. Valerie kind of went through a widespread amount of issues there. And to be honest, it doesn't even touch the surface of the amount of issues. So thank you, Valerie, for adding that in. Walmart is paying more money than the educators that we pay to teach our kids at the most crucial time of their education in their lives. That's a pretty powerful thing to listen to, right? And I know, Valerie, you're not the only one that knows that in this, and I've heard that from many other providers as well. But thank you, Valerie, for your thoughts. Next, we have Nicole Fetherman, who's the executive director from Lifespan School and Daycare up in Quakertown.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I serve as the executive director here. We have typically 9 locations serving about 700 children each day. Although this year has been a little different with our COVID, pandemic experience, and we have consolidated some locations, but continue to serve, our area here. I employ about 130 to 150 dedicated professionals, to provide that care and education for children and families in 3 counties. I have a Lehigh County location, Montgomery County, and several in Bucks. We do infants through school age and pre-K counts, full day, full year programs. So I wanted to talk really about the focus for access to high quality care by expanding subsidy slots and increasing the income guidelines for eligibility. The parent statement was very powerful. And I think, childcare is the second highest expense, over their housing cost. I mean, that's just so difficult for people to continually manage. And we know that, really on the backs of our workers, that we try to keep our tuition fees low so that they can be affordable to parents, but which is what prevents us from paying more to the staff that so desperately deserve it. So I think the income eligibility guidelines really need to be looked at so that it's expanded so that more families can be eligible. They're still low income working poor. Those guidelines are necessary. Obviously, I know it's, the pot of money always seems to establish a waiting list and everything. It's never quite enough. The other part of that, and we were grateful, very grateful for the March 1 increase in the base rates, but that had been way too many years, that there had been no increase in those rates had been frozen for quite some time. There should be some annual kind of increase to those rates to get us to that closer to that 70% that is recommended by the federal government for the subsidy reimbursement rates. The second part that I really wanted to focus in on was that quality component. Pennsylvania had done some really excellent work over the last decade or so with regard to the Keystone Stars Quality Initiative and the quality rating system. We're Star 4 Center at all of our locations. Proud to say that and to serve in this capacity for our communities. But over the last several years, the resources and financial supports that went along with the Keystone Stars program, specifically the merit awards that were a tiered system based on your rating, and also the education and retention awards for staff, have been decreased and removed for those higher star levels. Those are essential dollars in maintaining the quality that we've worked so hard over these years to attain and sustain and retain the staff that we need. So I think that that has been one of the hardest things to cope with from a business management perspective. Those dollars were used, you know, to replenish classroom supplies and provide professional development. I support what Valerie said 100%. You know, those are real and true costs. We're always trying to provide top level professional development experiences so that we can stay cutting edge, so that we can do the best practices, you know, and really keep our staff current with, you know, the transition overnight. I mean, we had like a week, you know, to figure out how to do virtual learning for preschool children, you know, but we rose to the occasion. Like Valerie, we were open the whole time as well for essential workers. And, you know, there were so many challenges, you know, throughout that, just getting the supplies that we needed for PPE and cleaning and so forth. So, you know, I think early childhood as a community has always risen to the task at hand, whatever it has been, with usually, you know, very minimal supports and funding. And this pandemic has proven more than ever, I think, the essential component that childcare plays in our economy to get everybody back to work, but also, you know, as business owners and providers for the care and education that these families need. The one other thing I wanted to mention was the backward system that we have for the tax rates currently in Pennsylvania, and just talk for a minute about, you know, the disparity kind of that is played out in that realm, and encourage our representatives and legislators to take a look at manipulating that so that really the richest and the wealthiest Pennsylvanians are paying their fair share. They currently pay the least when you look at their, you know, salary and income levels, whereas the lowest income earners are paying so much more, a substantial portion of their wages into the tax you know, component for our state. So I really think that needs to be looked at as an avenue to get more money for our state and be able to apply to these programs that we're talking about, particularly early childhood. So thank you.
No, thank you, Nicole. I mean, you're not going to have high quality early childhood education if you don't actually incentivize people to go into the field, to dedicate that time, and then be rewarded to stay in the field. So that everything that has to do with what you said, Nicole, when it comes to those incentives for teachers and others is all connected to high quality. It's all connected to access for families to high quality. So thank you for your comments. Last but not least, on this first panel, we're going to have Kurt Vonder, Schmalz, who's the owner from Vamonos Childcare. He's got another center over in Montgomery County, but the two in Bucks are in Warrington and Warminster. Kurt? Kurt, you are on mute. There we go.
There you go.
Thanks.
You got me?
Yep, you're good.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's good to be here. We at Vamonos is a full service preschool, full service from 6 months through aftercare. It was founded in 2011 by my wife and myself. She can't be here because of the common problems I think we're all having, which is staffing. She's in a classroom right now, so I chose to jump in and participate. We too were open during the pandemic. We actually shifted gears and had a large virtual learning support program for the local districts in our area. And we're grateful to be able to service that need. What we learned most during this pandemic was just how critical all of us are in terms, and when I say all of us, I mean childcare centers are to this economy. Without us, everything's going to come to a screeching halt. And from what I saw early on was our state government saw that. They were getting nervous because a lot of us were disappearing because we couldn't support our fixed expenses. And so I'm grateful, very grateful that early on there were funds sent our way, and we were able to continue to operate. But I think just strictly from a business perspective, where I see a critical need right now is working capital and keeping centers like us and like all of us viable, so that we can continue to support, hopefully, the reduction in unemployment, people getting back to work. Without us being here, that's not going to happen. In our case, we have 3 centers. One we opened, or we signed. No, hello.
We can hear you, Kurt. Kelly, would you be able to mute? Thank you. Okay, Kurt.
Our newest center, we attempted to open actually, we signed the deal 2 weeks before the pandemic hit. So we had to sit on that for over a year. We were able to do that, and we're open today in Warminster. But it was a significant undertaking for us to be able to do that. But what I see with us and with all centers is that, unlike retail or restaurants, as our revenue drops, we're not able to cut to a skeleton staff. We're not able to, if our revenue drops 70%, we can't cut our payroll by 70%. We can't cut most things by 70%. We're stuck. We, as we should be, have to abide by ratios and follow those rules, but that comes with a cost. And it's very difficult with a center that's large to go from 95% capacity to 40 or 30 and support all the expenses that come along with a large center. And although we're above that 40% now, we're still in a position where we need help, and I'm not afraid to ask for that help. So really, my main focus is, and I hope, is that the state sees that centers need funds to operate and to remain viable to support the growth in the economy that we hope is going to happen. We all have to assume that that's coming. The job numbers today were not encouraging, but I think that's a temporary thing. I don't know. I don't want to get into the politics, but hopefully we're going to continue to grow. People are going to go back in the workforce, and they're going to need us, and we need to be here. So for me, I think strictly from the business perspective, working capital for centers is critical.
All right, thank you, Kurt. Yeah, and then we still kind of have that unpredictability when it comes to the unemployment market and others. So it's still tough. People are starting to feel like we're coming out of this thing. But what we've seen is there's still that hesitation from working parents to decide if they can afford to go back to work or not, or send their child to a center, and especially high quality. So I appreciate everybody's comments that were on here for the first panel. To kind of wrap up the first panel, I would love to, it's a tough question. I don't want to throw you on the spot, but when it comes to how the federal government can, the money that's coming from the federal government to the state, if you could, in like 1 to 3 words, just say what you feel like would have the biggest impact on making access for these families and these children to high quality programs that the state could do today or whenever the money is able to be released, what would that 1 or 2 to 3 word thing be coming from it? I'll start with I'll throw you under the bus, Valerie, to lead off with you.
No problem. I would say help as far as like maybe something retroactive for the centers who are open. That would help us out a lot for the expense that we had.
Great.
Retroactive.
Yeah. Think about what you've already been through and spent, right? Great. Thank you, Valerie. Nicole?
I would say reinstate the funding supports for the Keystone Stars under the award system merit and ERAs. Those are critical to quality, critical funds.
Thank you. Thank you. And Kurt.
I would second what Valerie said, as well as I think more people need to know of the programs out there, the subsidies that are available. So definitely that, to broadcast it, advertise it, do something so families are aware.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So we're going to talk a little bit more. A lot of you, and I see a lot of comments in the chat, are surrounding this idea of support for the workforce. And kind of, we already spoke about a little bit, everything is tied to that. The quality of centers, the amount of staff that's available, the pool of staff that's really not available right now in early childhood for many of these reasons. So the second portion of this discussion is going to focus on that workforce. A lot of you who I've talked to, and over the last year especially, and really over the last couple of months, have really hit hard on the idea that staffing, qualified staff and consistent qualified staff has been one of your biggest challenges. And there are a whole lot of issues why that is. And so we're going to get a little bit into that. So I want to thank the first panel, and then I'm going to introduce the second panel. And so Shirley, if you don't mind throwing it into the chat for our second question for today. How should the American Rescue Plan funds be used to support the child care workforce? Okay, so the actual workforce. And I have three great panelists today. I have Teri Windisch from Children's Village at Doylestown Hospital. I also have Dawn Stear from First Friends, and then I have Janine Figiel from Jolly Toddlers as well. So Teri's going to start us off today. Teri Windisch from Children's Village at Doylestown Hospital.
Thanks, Dan. I first also want to just say ditto to everything that Valerie, Nicole, and Kurt said. Like you said, they're overlapping issues, and I heard a lot of views that really resonated with me and with my experience. We stayed open too. We support the hospital, so we never closed. We not only did we never close, we added programming to support school-age children who didn't have schools to go to last spring. So a lot was asked of us as well. Unfortunately, this was a time when being part of a larger organization was hugely helpful to my center. But in terms of the workforce, somebody put it in the chat, we didn't reduce or let go of any of our full-time employees because, one, the pandemic demanded additional staffing, and two, we didn't want to lose those folks. And fortunately, they're still with us. So I agree with Nicole about the merit award and the ERA awards. That merit money infused into my program over time made enormous differences into what I could offer, right? So when enrollment is down and you're looking at your budget, you can't cut paper towels and goldfish, but you can cut new library books and playground equipment. Equally vital for the health of the children, but the things you have to defer. And that merit money really functioned like physical plant supplementation for my center. And without those funds, it's very rare that you have a fiscal year where there's dollars left over to do the maintenance and improvement of your facility that might be required. That's one of the reasons I miss those funds. Teachers came to count on those ERA awards as if they were salary. They were there for a long time. They were based on the level of education you had attained. And when those were pulled out from under staff, that was a very hard pill to swallow for teachers. I struggle with the industry's expectation that we should be employing 4-year or plus degreed people for what we pay those people. So it's a chicken and an egg kind of question, right? So we demand these educational credentials, but then we can't pay these folks what those kinds of credentials would earn them in other settings. So something that matters a lot to me is income parity for my teachers with early elementary teachers. I mean, we run a full day licensed kindergarten with phenomenal exit results annually, and my teachers make a third of what a public school teacher with time in the field would make. And that makes no sense to me whatsoever. So I would love to see a thorough examination of the disparity between ECE and early ed and some local remedies around that. I also think one possible offset could be student loan forgiveness for our younger teachers. I met with a teacher yesterday, came in to talk to me about a predicament. He's worked here for 8 years. He's a Penn State grad with dual teaching certification. He makes 18 bucks an hour and can't afford housing anymore. He's a single guy, had 2 roommates. The arrangement's dissolving and he cannot find affordable housing, not rent or buy, on what he makes here. I have many teachers that work second jobs, and the jobs we have are exhausting. They are exhausting. And, you know, we hear it from our parents all the time. We couldn't do what you do. We couldn't do what you do. Parents who are grateful for what we do, but who acknowledge how incredibly demanding and physically exhausting work with young children can be. So I would really like to see the educational expectations that the industry expects be balanced with the salary issues that we face in terms of our ability to pay teachers. And then finally, Dan knows that I think that early childhood education should be tax funded, which is a conversation for another time, but that's the long-term answer, is that our contributions and our value is embraced by the publicly funded educational infrastructure.
Thank you, Teri. And I mean, everything you kind of just talked about goes around the idea of, you know, first of all, a teacher should never have to work a second job, especially in an exhausting field when you have that many kids that are under the age of 5, whether you're teaching high school. We need to prioritize our teachers a little bit more and actually show them a little bit of the respect that they deserve. And so, Teri, everything you talked about was really about that respect and proving it by an investment, not only what the federal government's sending, but also making it jumpstart what the state can do in the future. So thank you for your comments. Next, we have Dawn Stear from First Friends. Dawn?
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Dan, for inviting me today. I am going to talk about the staff challenges that we've had at First Friends over the last year or so. I have a small center. We only have 38 children in our center. We've been in existence since 1988. So we've been around a long time. I've seen a lot of changes, mostly for the best in our industry. But staffing has become a real challenge. Prior to COVID, there were some challenges, but once COVID hit, it almost became impossible to find high quality staff. I have probably had an ad up in Indeed since the middle of summer, ongoing. Sometimes I check it and for days on end, nobody responds. I've shifted the way I word it, thinking I could make it more exciting, more attractive, and I'm not getting anybody. My staff here are exhausted. They are working long hours. They're working overtime just so we can stay open, and we're not even open our normal hours yet. We have adjusted our hours so that we can manage to clean and do everything that's needed to keep the kids safe. I don't know when we can get back to our normal hours. I don't have the staffing to do it right now. And parents are asking me, and my response to them is, I really don't know right now. I'm losing. So when I eventually hire staff, I end up losing them because they're going to what somebody else said, to Walmart. I lost somebody a couple of weeks ago because she was able to make more money standing outside in a booth at Walmart, delivering packages to the people who had ordered online. I can't compete with $16 an hour for somebody that just graduated from high school. I just can't. My margins are too thin. So my thought is that with this rescue plan money, that daycare centers need the funding to be able to increase our salaries for starting employees. We also need to try to do some type of incentivizing. People that are sitting home making an extra $300 a week, They don't want to come to work for me when I'm paying them $10 or $11 an hour. They're making more money sitting at home. So if I could take that $300, if you could put that in my hands and I could utilize it kind of like the way the PPP was structured, where I could then incentivize people coming to work for me. I could give them sign-on bonuses. I could give them that $300 a week over the course of 2 or 3 months if they stayed employed with me. That would be a much better way, I think, to use the money than to be paying somebody to sit home collecting it. So that is my thought for a short-term solution. Long-term, we are losing teachers in our teacher pool. People are not going to school anymore for ECE. There's no money in it. And over the course of the last couple of years, I have found when I'm interviewing for teachers, because my classrooms I need 4-year degree teachers, I am finding less and less people that have those degrees and or are qualified. So I'm all for increasing that minimum wage up to $15 an hour, but we need help from the state to do that. We can't do that by ourselves. And if we're going to put that $15 an hour into place, then all of my other teachers and my senior staff who have been here need to have their salaries up. So it's just kind of like a cyclical situation. So I think that there needs to be some money put into long-term hiring and supporting and encouraging staff to come into our field. And I am fearful that if this $15 an hour goes into effect without support from the state, that a lot of our centers are going to close. I don't know if I would be able to do that as a small center with a smaller revenue than some of the larger centers. So I really think that right now, staffing is a huge challenge. I know it's not just for childcare. I realize that in the other industries, it's challenging as well. But if we're going to be able to stay open and service families in our community, we need some funding. I think this is a great way to spend some of that rescue plan money. So thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. What I'm seeing a little bit in the chat and what Dawn kind of hit on was, why would somebody, besides the love of kids, why would somebody enter into this field, whether they were leaving high school and or leaving college, if they know they can't survive off the money that they're going to make? I mean, I don't think that we can sometimes see what effect that has 5 and 10 years down the road. First of all, you're not going to have people to actually work at centers. So a lot of the centers will close. And when you're trying to attract young families into a county like Bucks County, where the cost is already way too high to live, you're putting yourself in a real economic pickle. So thank you, Dawn, for adding those comments into the conversation. Last but not least, for this panel, and then we're going to kind of wrap up, maybe hopefully with a general question, is Janine Figiel from Jolly Toddlers. Janine?
Hi, everyone. I'm Janine Figiel. I'm the assistant director here at Jolly Toddlers, stepping in for Nancy Thompson, our fearless leader, who's been doing this for it's like 1984, I think, is when she opened. So she's been doing this for a really long time. So I'm stepping in for her. Hopefully doing it okay. I'm just going to reiterate basically what everybody has said so far. I mean, everyone's touched on so many important different areas. I was basically going to focus on ERA, the Education Retention Award, and how that's really rough right now for our staff. We have staff members who have been here for almost 20 years. So the fact that that was taken, that was almost, I think it was $3,090 that they would receive every year, that they, like everyone was saying, they depend on this money. So, and that was always such a huge point for us when we were interviewing potential staff. We would say, that was our selling point. You could get this ERA, you get your education paid for through Teach, which I'll touch on in a couple minutes, but that was always a big selling point for us, that we could do, you get this offset the unfortunately low salary that early childhood has, that this would be offset by the bonus. And that was recently taken away from us. We did get the $600, which was nice, of a stimulus that all the childcare employees did receive. Kind of a kick in the face for the employees who've been here for 20 years. They got the exact same amount of money that someone who walked in the center 2-3 weeks ago, and it was like, didn't matter. So, and it all comes down to expecting high quality. With high quality comes highly educated teachers. That's what we're expected. That's what STARS tells us that we need. That's what the state tells us we need. And in order to do that, how do we give the incentive to these teachers to go out and continue to educate themselves? And like I said, I will touch on Teach, which was another funding that we had. We had one of our teachers that got denied for fall and then again in spring already, that she couldn't get the money to pay. So, you know, that was another selling point. If we can get you to get funding, we can get you your education paid for and, you know, get you a money back in return. So it's very difficult to get our teachers to further their education, even though that all these stipulations and these are being put on us by the state and all these things that we have to do, we're not getting the financial backing to be able to get this done. So that is a huge, the ERA is probably one of the biggest things that we're dealing with right now. Our staff is furious, to be honest. They're really, really angry. Why would you get yourself into, you know, more debt to go to school, to be higher educated, to not get any money back? So that ERA is a big part. The Merit Award is huge. For our center, we're a Star 4. We have about 100 plus students here from 6 weeks to 6 years. And we, in the past, have always received that, it was $37,800 per year. And that would go, that had to be put back into the center. We typically put that into, honestly, subs for our classrooms. If we have challenging behavior, I know somebody had mentioned it earlier today. A lot of challenging behavior right now in our centers we're seeing, and the support from the IU or whatever, it's hard. They're stretched thin also. So a lot of it is left on us to do. So we would use those funds to pay for subs, to help teachers, make them feel supported in their classroom, that we hear their needs, we're helping them, we're supporting them. And now it seems that we don't have that extra funding. So those teachers feel abandoned. They don't feel supported in their classrooms. I think someone had mentioned before, high quality, not only, I mean, primarily high teachers, you know, high quality, highly educated teachers, but also things in the classroom. Teachers have wish lists. They have things that they need for the students to make it, you know, the materials in the classroom. We can no longer, we have to tell them, sorry, we can't afford that. We can't do that right now. We put it on the back burner. So I guess, I mean, I know everyone has kind of touched on this, and I know we only have 6 minutes left, so I'm gonna just run through. But basically, I guess the question is why would we do this? Why would we continue with this high quality education? It's what's ingrained in us and what we will continue to do, but there's no financial support. There's teacher burnout. There is more demands, less support, teacher turnover. And honestly, like someone said before, we are losing people to Walmart, or people make more money on unemployment than they do. We had some teachers that didn't want to come back because they made more money on unemployment than they do teaching our children, our future. And there's no other business or, you know, job that would be okay with that, would be okay with more demands, less support, and taking away all our finances. So basically all I have to say.
No, thank you, Janine. Thank you very much for adding that in. And it kind of comes down to this question that I want to ask each of the three of you, and it's kind of tying in a little bit to what was talked about earlier. But if Teri, Dawn, and Janine, if you just give me one word answer, yes or no, with everything that you've heard today, whether it was from the first panel or to the second panel that you talked about, from the lack of access to you know, for parents to be able to afford it, to the staffing issues, the cost, and so on. Is this current climate, even not even counting COVID, you know, moving forward, is this environment around early childhood education sustainable?
Absolutely not.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
No.
You didn't even have to think about it.
Nope.
Right?
Nope.
So that kind of leads us to the end. First of all, I want to thank everybody who, it's not easy. First of all, everybody's at a center. Everybody's dealing with staffing issues. We had somebody else who was also dealing with a staffing issue who was not able to attend. These are kind of the things that go behind the scenes. everybody was so professional in presenting the issues, and in reality, right behind their wall, these issues are taking place. So I appreciate you being able to, and also everybody in the chat, vulnerable to even talk about it. It's not great to talk about how your business is struggling and how your workers are struggling. But unfortunately, we're at a point where we need to do that. And we're at a point where the federal government has been stepping up, right? This is a good amount of money that's coming through, but it's really meant for now. If it wasn't for that federal government money that came through the 4 different packages, we might not be having this conversation right now with many of these women and men who are on this call talking about what they're currently facing. Because as Valerie said, and one of her centers did, she kind of, just glazed right past it, but it breaks people's heart. They lost their businesses, and many only held on because of that effort at the federal level. So now it's time to use that money to make sure that the centers are able to actually stay open now, support them for those expenses we talked about before, and everything that each of these educators brought up, whether it's raising the thresholds so parents are able to access high quality education, or so they're able to actually provide a high quality education and keep qualified staff and eventually recruit them for the future, because we're not going to have a pool of workers to do so. The state needs to use this money in the way that they're hearing from the providers. They know what they need. We need to listen to them. So I want to thank everybody. I see somebody asked, is there a follow-up meeting? There is a couple things that you can do to follow up. First of all, we are going to keep this conversation going. We have 11 other conversations that are taking place across the state. We will send you all of them if you want to hear what other people in different areas of Pennsylvania are talking about. But we are also going to put a survey link. I know Shirley did already. We'll do it again. And everybody who registered will also receive this survey link. If you can fill this out, this is kind of a quick checklist of everything we just talked about and what you think the federal money can be used for. And like we said, we're going to send this to Octel, the Wolf administration, all the state lawmakers, so that they hear your voice in this matter. And feel free to always reach out to us. We're going to be reaching out to you at PCCY to keep fighting, not only for this money to be used in the right way, but for the state to do its part, not only this year, but next year and for decades to come. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate you being able to speak your mind. You will hear what is determined by these funds, because we are going to keep speaking for you, and hopefully you're with us along the way. And we will make sure that everybody knows what's going on. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. I hope everybody gets a breather on the weekend. If not, then hopefully you do soon. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.